it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Let's just go ahead and get into the books that I read. I will be also including the 2 books that I read in December and the 1 movie that I watched that I like to talk about. Let's just, stop rambling and get on into it. So in December, I only read 2 books, the first one being 12 Days of Dash and Lily by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan, which is a sequel to Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. I read Dash and Lily's Book of Dares last year for Christmas, and I kind of felt pretty mediocre about it. It wasn't anything spectacular. Actually, I ended up enjoying the second book a lot more than the first book. I really felt like Lily grew as a character. I think it has to do with a lot of the personal struggle she goes through in the year between the 2 books. A lot of things happen with her family that really end up forcing Lily to grow up and to mature. Also loved what Dash went through to bring the spirit of Christmas back to Lily. She really fell out of love with Christmas in this book. I feel like you never really see what happens after the 2 characters get together. This was really a great insight into what a relationship looks like a year later after it goes through struggles, after it goes through hardships. Really liked seeing these 2 characters grow over that year. Definitely recommend it for like a Christmas read. I ended up enjoying this one more and gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the second book that I read in December was What Light by J. Asher, which is actually my favorite Christmas book that I think I've ever read. I really enjoyed this one. A young girl who spends every year from Thanksgiving to Christmas on a tree farm. It had so much Christmas spirit and so much festivity. I loved the atmosphere of living and working on a tree lot. I really enjoyed this. I had so many wonderful Christmas moments. The boy that she falls for was just so precious, and I loved their relationship. This is something that I definitely think I'll be rereading in future Christmas seasons because I enjoyed it so much, and it was just so festive, and it gave me all the Christmas feelings that I wanted. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Moving into January, the first book that I read in 2018 was Killing Sarai, which is the first book in the Company of Killers series by J.A. Redmerski. When she is a early teen, her mom meets a man who is part of a Mexican drug cartel. So she takes her young daughter Sarai to Mexico. She's raised in a drug lord's compound. At the very beginning of the novel, Sarai is planning to escape the compound. She's an American man who's hired by the drug lord Javier, comes to visit the compound. She's like, perfect, I'm an American, he's got to go back to America. I still really enjoyed this book. It is incredibly entertaining. I think it's being turned into a TV show. I think it will translate beautifully to TV. There were just some things about this book that made my skin crawl a little bit. And I think if I would have read this book, say like 3 years ago, would have been a 5 out of 5, no questions asked. She meets this one outsider man who is a hired assassin. Like, he's not a good person. And she instantly latches onto him and becomes very much like obsessed with him. She starts having feelings for this guy. She's lived a very traumatic life. I get why she falls for him, but it made me feel a little icky inside. I couldn't help picturing Victor as this man from Transformers. I don't think he's this old, because this is the man who is cast to play him in the TV show. They don't look anything alike, but I could not get out of my mind that it was this 40-year-old man who was leading on a 23-year-old traumatized girl. That dynamic, that power dynamic, was just making me really uncomfortable. Towards the end, Sarai starts to kind of tap into this darkness in her. She shows a lot of interest in becoming an assassin herself, assuming that's like where the story's going to go, and I'm excited to see her develop into this very strong, powerful, kick-butt female assassin. But like this whole dependence on this man who in my mind was old, creepy, and could be her father was making me very uncomfortable. Ended up giving Killing Sarai a 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next book I read was The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. This is a contemporary novel that takes place on New Year's Eve about a young girl who is traveling from one side of the country to the other, has a layover in Denver. Denver is experiencing the blizzard of a century, and she gets stranded in the Denver airport. And the problem with that is on New Year's Day a year ago, her best friend was killed in a drunk driving accident. So there's a lot of discussion about grief and survivor's guilt and coming to terms with who you are after losing your best friend. But there's also so many other amazing plot lines. We meet so many eclectic, different individuals in the airport that she befriends for the night. And I loved meeting all these different people from so many different walks of life. Really enjoyed this one character that she meets who's a young boy. He's a genius. And he is fascinated by the the Denver airport conspiracy theory. I touch a little bit on the conspiracy theory in the book. It was a really fun element to this book that I really enjoyed, being a conspiracy nut myself. I don't think it has to be read on New Year's Eve. There are some like winter elements to it, obviously with the blizzard and everything. It's something that I feel like would be prevalent any time of year. Even if it's not New Year's Eve, I would still recommend picking up this book because I think it's a great discussion about what it's like to lose a best friend and how to deal with that. So I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And the next book I picked up was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire, which is the first book in the Wayward children's series. I read this for the YA BookTube Awards because sequels nominated. This book has been all over BookTube, Portal Fantasy. They find out that they are much more themselves and feel much more at home in these other worlds than they ever have felt in our world. For whatever reason, they get thrust back to our world and have to deal with the aftermath of no longer being in your true home. They go off to live in this boarding school together. There's also a murder mystery subplot. I really liked learning about all the different worlds and the logic versus nonsense, wicked versus like virtuous worlds, and I really liked hearing all the different characters' perceptions of where they were. I was way more interested in that than I was in the plotline of our main character Nancy being in this boarding school. But I feel like because of that, I will enjoy the sequels better because they both take place in the Portal world as opposed to in our world. That's where I feel like the disconnect for me really came, is that I really wanted fantastical, crazy world. I did really enjoy the mystery subplot. I was a little upset by the length of this book. Like, I wanted more. I was really enjoying it and I would have liked more from it. Although I really liked it, I didn't feel like the extreme emotional like connection and understanding that so many people have felt while reading this. I ended up giving this one a 3.75 out of 5 stars. And the next book I ended up listening to on audio, and that was Fairest by Marissa Meyer. We follow Levithan's story, meet her as a young girl, and then watch her as she grows up into womanhood, see her transform from a princess to a queen. And I loved the audiobook. I've loved every audiobook for the series. They're fantastic. Rebecca Soler is so incredibly talented. She brings these stories to life in a way that I just don't feel like Marissa Meyer ever did on page. A huge portion of why I gave this 5 stars initially was the shock factor. I was so appalled by Levithan and what she does and how she manipulates people, the lengths she goes to for things. I was shooketh to my core. Now that I know what happens, I didn't find it as shocking, so I ended up dropping my rating down to a 4 out of 5 stars. I love Levithan's story. I love how brilliant and cunning and ambitious she is, but still how mad she is. A quote from Pirates of the Caribbean: "This is either madness or brilliance." And then Jack says, "It's strange how those two always coincide." And I feel like Levithan is the perfect convergence of both brilliance and madness. So after that, I picked up One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. I think that this book is not good. To go very in-depth and detailed without being spoilery in my Goodreads review, I can't even tell you what I think is an issue with this book. I can't tell you my problems with it without spoiling it, because the way that she uses representation of various characters' sexual identities and mental disorders, she writes it in a way where it's a plot twist. I also spoiled myself before going into this book, so I did not find it mysterious, suspenseful, thrilling in any way. I don't feel like it's supposed to be. I feel like it's much more an examination of the 4 characters who were present for the death of Simon, the death of the student, the reveal at the end for the reasons behind why it happened and how it happened. Made me so uncomfortable. I could not believe that the author used this scenario to compare it to what she did. I did like the 2 characters, Bronwyn and Nate, and their relationship and their dynamic together. I would have much preferred to just read a story about them without any of the other stuff that happened in this novel. It wasn't unenjoyable, it wasn't torture, it wasn't boring, it was relatively entertaining, but my entertainment should not be at the expense of other people's identities. Because of all that, I ended up giving this book a 1.5 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I finally finished Stalking Jack the Ripper. There is nothing compelling about this story. There is nothing mysterious about this story. There is nothing thrilling about this story. It is so boring and bland, and the writing style is ugh. She would spend like 2 paragraphs describing something that could have been summed up in like 1 sentence. It was just unnecessary filler. You know when you're writing a paper and you think in your head, if I just write as many words as I can and make these sentences seem as complex as I can, maybe it'll make me seem smarter. That's how I felt this book was. Did not like the way that the story came together in the end. I really didn't like the reveal for the murderer or the reasons behind it. It felt so supernatural for a story that beforehand had no supernatural qualities to it, aside from a very weird scene with a psychic that was just a very lazy way of relaying information to Audrey Rose. It was weird. And then the ending was weird. Fortunately, this book was a huge, huge letdown for me. I was so excited to read this. I thought I was going to absolutely love this book. The only saving grace for it was the audiobook. I do think that the narrator did a very great job. The only reason why I was able to finish this book, so many issues with Audrey Rose, the inner dialogue of her being rebellious versus being a lady of society. I really wanted her to just be the rebellious, forward-thinking, kick-butt lady that she could be, and I wanted her to let go of social constraints. Be the woman you want to be, Audrey Rose. Don't be so concerned with what everybody else thinks of you. I ended up giving this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. And then the final book that I read in January was Wings of Fire, The Dragonet Prophecy by T. Sutherland. It takes place in this world where there are several different species of dragons. They live in different tribes, and so because of that, they all have different powers, different abilities. I was so entertained while reading this. The main character who tells this story is Clay, who is a mudwing. He is right here in the front. He was like the dragon version of a Labrador. We follow 5 dragonets who were all stolen to this group of dragons called the Talons of Peace, because there are 3 sandwing dragons who are all fighting for the sandwing throne. Because of that, alliances have been made. These 5 dragons are supposed to be the realization of a prophecy, and they're supposed to bring peace to the land. I liked how all the different dragons had different personalities. Hope we get viewpoints from some of the other dragonettes, because some of them were just so feisty and so fun to read about that I would love to be in their head with them. This was a little bit more violent than I was expecting for a middle grade. Dragons being murdered left and right. There are humans they call scavengers in this world whose heads just get bitten off, and then they're like, nom 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 nom, it's tasty. I end up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. That was a lot of books. Let's go ahead and talk about the TV shows that I have been watching recently. So the first TV show that I've been watching is Riverdale on the CW. My cousin has been begging me for months to watch this. She's like obsessed with Cheryl. I was like, fine, she loves it, I gotta check it out. I watched the entire first season on Netflix in the span of like a weekend. I'm obsessed and I love it. It's based on the Archie comics. It's the epitome of what I love about CW TV. Dark, like still cheeky, very self-aware murder mystery teenage drama. I love teenage dramas, and we haven't had new one in a really long time. I loved the characters. The characters were instantly people that I was hooked on. Like, I didn't think I was going to love this as much as I did. I can't wait for season 2 to be on Netflix. And then I finally finished season 4 of the originals. I had like 4 episodes to watch. The final episode of season 4 made me cry. I was not expecting that at all. It just didn't seem like there was any way to beat this villain. The villain just seemed too large, too grand for even the originals to beat, and I wasn't really sure what they were going to do about it. Final conclusion for it just broke my heart. I would have been perfectly content if that was the series finale. Yes, there were some things that were a little unresolved that I would have liked to have been resolved, like a series finale, but overall, if it had ended there, I would have been totally content, because what I wanted to come out of it, I got. However, it was renewed for a 13-episode season 5. I'm hesitant, I'm excited, curious. I don't really know where they're going to go from here. I don't know how they're going to introduce another villain for only 13 episodes, because I think season 5 is the final season. Certain someone from the Vampire Diaries makes an appearance in the originals, which would make so many people happy. I'm praying. I'm hoping. I think it's a possibility. And finally, let's talk about the 2 movies that I saw in theaters. The first one was Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I saw this in December. I had gone into this movie with a lot of expectations, a lot of theories, and I feel like not a single one of them came to fruition. Nothing that I wanted from the series going forward happened. So a lot of this movie was just spent kind of like disappointed and surprised. Like, I was shocked by the direction they took for some things, but at the same time I was like, yeah, that's exciting and I'm kind of into it, but you know, my theory was a lot better and they should have gone that route, obviously. A lot of things just didn't happen the way that I wanted to happen, so I wasn't really sure how to feel about the movie. In general, it was a very visually stunning movie. There were some aspects of the character development that I really enjoyed. I didn't get reveals on things that I really wanted. I was very bummed about quite a few things in this film. I still really enjoyed myself. It's incredibly entertaining. It's visually stunning. And then the second film that I saw was Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. I was not at all interested in seeing until the reviews started coming out for this. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Jumanji. This movie was incredible. It was so funny. I think Jack Black was a teenage girl in another life because he played her so freaking well. It was just like on point with what a teenage girl, like it was so well done, and I was so impressed. And I was so impressed with The Rock's humor. And oh my gosh, Kevin Hart was fantastic. All the actors in this movie were fantastic. They had great comedic chemistry. I love that The Rock was being played essentially by a scrawny, nerdy, insecure teenage boy, because I mean, it's The Rock. I was dying laughing this whole entire movie. I was crying. There were tears everywhere. If you want to laugh, if you want to just enjoy yourself, if you want a great action adventure movie, amazing comedic timing, you need to go see Jumanji. So that is it. Those are all of the books, TV shows, and movies that I watched in December and in January. This video is so crazy long. It's like an hour of footage. I'm gonna hate myself when I have to edit this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!